Hey, what's up guys? Travis Fulton here and welcome to Online Gainz. Each week, I'm gonna be sharing with you real insight on how I'm developing players all across the world on full swing, short game, and putting. Be sure to tune in. Right, hey Felipe, Travis here. Thanks for the videos. Gonna give you my thoughts here on your pattern. I think the first thing here is with your setup here, I have two things for you. One is you're probably tilted a little too much back behind the golf ball here. You can see the spine back this way. That ball is outside the left shoulder, and I feel like that's a little too far. And when we look at the swing here, I think we're going to want to get the ball position to be a little bit more in line with that left shoulder. I mean, maybe just to the outside of it, but I think you're in a position here where you could tilt a little less. And if you were looking in front of a mirror, the back of this ball should be kind of more, you know, right, it should be pretty close to touching your lead shoulder. So let's tilt a little less. Your grip is very strong. You can see your right hand underneath. Now, according to your notes, you're a better iron player than you are a driver of the ball. And what I'm going to show you here in the swing, I think is something to consider just overall, not just with the driver, but also with the irons. But let's keep in mind the grip's strong. Let's keep in mind the ball's pretty far forward. And as we go back, you have a great shoulder turn. I mean, you really turn your shoulders exceptionally well. And as you start down, you have a good weight shift. You can see your left side moving into the lead foot. And then from there, as you rotate through, I think with that strong grip, you've learned to kind of lean the handle a little bit forward. And then you've done a nice job really of you know, getting after it with the rotation of your body as well. You've got dynamic movements with weight shift and rotation, and that strong grip has probably helped facilitate some of that to your finished position. Now, where you start looking for opportunities here, I think one is, I think in the backswing, and we'll see this from the other view, you know, you're definitely a candidate where I think getting the right side of the pelvis a bit higher than the left wouldn't be a bad thing, where we're letting the right side kind of climb a little bit more, right hip higher than the left hip, right knee a little higher than the left knee, and getting you a little bit more on that inclination, I do think will help you coming down. But as you really shift and turn through, there's a lot of really good stuff when it comes to your body movements through the impact zone. I do think you're tilting too much behind it at address. I do think that ball position is too far forward. And I do think the right side of the pelvis could get a little higher going back. Now, I think the most important view for you is going to come to the target line view, where I can show you a little bit more clearly how your pattern works. So let's go to that side now. All right, so here's your target line view. And when you look at this, I think the biggest thing here is as you watch the club, say right there, and you hinge it and you draw a line here along that club shaft. That's definitely a laid off shaft. It looks very similar to a John Rahm, right? Where that shaft is laid off. Now, I think the difference here is when you start down, you're gonna see the shaft want to steepen, right? So when you get back down to that left arm, roughly parallel position, you can see now the shaft, the blue line is steeper than the red line. So the shaft has steepened a little in transition, and you know, it's not ideal with the driver. You know, I think we're better off trying to get it to work a little bit the other way, where, you know, the backswing, the shaft would be a little bit more vertical. You know, where the shaft would probably be, say, somewhere in there going back, and then when it comes down, it would work a little bit back underneath that. So I think anytime that you see a shaft steepening in transition, I always feel like I need to kind of let the student know that ideally it would be the other way around. We would get it a bit more vertical going back and then shallow it out. And that might be something you want to do. It might not want to be something you do, as that could be a little, bigger change, but one that certainly fits what you would primarily see on TV. Now, with that said, I do think if you start looking at how you can kind of work yourself towards that, I do think getting the right side of the pelvis to be a little bit higher at the top would help. I do think your hips are very level here, and I think getting you a little more on this inclination would certainly help that, get the shaft pitched a bit more vertically at the top. With how big of a turn you make, your swing is pretty short. So I think you're really probably leaving not only some accuracy on the table here, but some distance when you look at how short and laid off the shaft is, and then how much you turn going back. So what I'm gonna suggest here is I'm gonna suggest that we get you set up a little bit better at address. We get the right side of the pelvis higher going back. And I think that would be kind of phase one. I would work on that first. But then if you want to take the whole bottle of this lesson, what I would suggest is to get the shaft turned right here to be a little bit more down the line. And if you got it turned to be a little bit more down the line, it would maximize, I think, what you're doing with your turn, but also set the stage for the shaft to be doing the right thing going back so it can shallow out coming down. I think the shaft pitch would be more in your favor coming down if you turned the shaft right here more down the line. So I'm gonna show you that in this video that I'm gonna shoot for you. And I would look at this lesson as two things. One is, okay, in phase one, I'm gonna get the setup right. I'm not gonna tilt as much. I'm gonna get the ball position more in line with my left shoulder. The grip, the right hand, I think you could probably bring a little bit more on top. It's definitely underneath. I'll leave that up to you. I'll show it to you. But I do think the right hand grip probably could be a little bit more snug on top of the left thumb. And then I think with that, to complete phase one is getting the right side of the pelvis higher. So I'll show you that. Phase two, I think, would be, all right, I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna get the club a little bit more across the line. And I'll show you how to turn that shaft, and I say across the line, it's gonna feel probably over here. The reality is it'll be more here. I think getting you out of that laid off look would set the stage for bigger things for you to happen on the downswing, in particular the shaft learning to shallow out a bit, which I think would really help your driver. All right, so I'll show you phase two and how to turn the shaft, and that's my advice to you, man. You got a lot of good stuff here. Just walking you through kind of the sensitivity of the shaft at the top, given the fact that you've done so well up to this point in lowering your handicap. But I do think tackling the shaft would maximize things given how big of a turn you've made. All right, time for your game plan. The first thing I want to talk about is the driver setup, ball position relative to your left shoulder. Okay, now right now, you've got a lot of side bend back here, and that ball is outside your lead shoulder. When you do that, you're gonna hit way up on it. All right, so you're gonna have to tee that ball really, really high. It's easy to catch that thing thin. It's easy, I think, for you in your swing to catch it probably low and down in towards the heel, which you mentioned in your comments. So one of the things that I want you to do is set up to where the tee is in the middle of your feet, and then take your feet, flare out your front foot just a little bit, maybe just a little space away from the right, and then that bigger step with the right foot, and then take your spine from neutral and just tilt it slightly. And now that tee, that ball would be right up in here, somewhere in that left shoulder area. and that's where I want you to be. So be careful in getting that ball position too far forward, and be careful in getting too much side bend back, because then that ball is gonna be way outside the lead shoulder. So follow that little routine. I like that routine a lot for people, where you just kind of start with the feet together, the ball in the middle, and then just, you know, little step, bigger step, subtle tilt, and then off you go. Now, your right hand with the grip. When you grip the right hand, try to cover up that left thumb just a little bit more. Okay, don't get way under. Try to get it where it's a little more down, you know, more kind of down diagonal in the middle 3 fingers, and then get that right hand a little more on top. The left thumb should feel like it fits in the lifeline, and you should feel like you can kind of clamp down on it versus being way underneath like that. So that would be the setup. I think that's gonna help. Now, the second thing is part of phase 1, as I mentioned in the analysis, is getting the right side of your pelvis to turn and work a little bit higher. So the idea here is from your setup, you want this to climb, the right side to kind of climb up and back behind you, where it feels like your right hip, right side of your pelvis, you can see is higher than your left. My right knee is higher than my left. My right shoulder significantly higher than my left. I think right now you're turning a little too level. Your pelvis is a little level this way. You can see your shoulders kind of go this way. When your left arm gets parallel, your right elbow is kind of really tucked underneath versus being more on this angle, okay? So it's gonna really feel like this hip is climbing. If you look from face on here, this right hip is climbing up and back this way, okay? You'll feel your glute engage, you'll feel the left shoulder lower, and that inclination is what we want. One of my favorite drills is pulling the lawnmower cord, where you just kind of set up, you take, you know, actually got the cord here, and you pull that cord kind of up towards your shoulder, and keep turning and extend your arm back like this. And when you do that, you want to feel like you're really much more on this severe angle here, right side higher than the left, versus leveled out like this. Okay, you would be, in your swing, you would be kind of pulling the cord like out this way and around, versus pulling the cord more up, 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 and back behind you, feeling the right side higher. So that's the inclination that I'm talking about. And when you do that, I think you'll feel the club, you'll kind of feel like the club's kind of working, you know, a bit more kind of in, the hand path a bit more in, and maybe underneath the shaft a little bit more, rather than the hands kind of letting the shaft kind of roll this way. And once again, you can see the shoulders leveled out. Let me know if that makes sense. That's the key piece in phase 1. Now, phase 2, what I would do is when you feel like you're doing that better, then I would start to turn the shaft a little bit more, what feels like more across the line, okay, and not laid off over here. You have a very short swing relative to how much you're turning. You're very flexible. You're making a great turn. You got to get more on this inclination, but nonetheless, a great turn. This club should be somewhere in here. So the feeling for that is to take your right hand, the palm of your right hand, and let the palm of your right hand kind of turn away from you and face the camera. See there? Camera right there. When you do that with the club in your hand and you turn that wrist, the shaft will go more over there. Okay? When the shaft goes more over there, you'll feel the shaft a bit more vertical here. So it'll feel like that shaft's kind of working up and over there rather than that way. When I do that, the palm's kind of looking more up to the sky rather than turned towards the camera. So I love that for phase 2. I love that feeling blended in with the inclination of that pelvis and the shoulders more on that steeper angle, like pulling that cord. Love this game plan for you. Focus on the setup and the body first. Add a little club to it when you feel comfortable, and I am really encouraged from there that club shaft then from there
will really pitch back nicely and give you the green light to turn and hit it as hard as you want.